Assalamualaikum everyone, my name is Dr. Ellie Zarina Samsudin. In this session, we will be going over the Science of Mental Health and Modern Medicine Part 1, Basic Brain Anatomy and Function. In this session, we will go over how the brain works and how it relates to mental disorders. It is hoped that by the end of this session, you will be able to first describe the basic anatomy and function of the brain, and secondly, describe the role of the brain in mental disorders. The World Health Organization defines mental disorders as a disorder characterized by a clinically significant disturbance in an individual's cognition, emotional regulation, or behavior that is usually associated with distress or impairment in important areas of functioning. Mental disorders are often associated with changes in the brain structure, chemistry, and function, and that is why it is important to understand how the brain works to identify root causes of mental disorders and manage and treat them accordingly. Our nervous system acts as a processing center that manages everything that our body does, from our thoughts and feelings to our movements. Our nervous system is made out of the central nervous system, CNS, and peripheral nervous system, PNS. The CNS consists of the brain and spinal cord, whereas the PNS includes nerve cells, as in neurons, that branch off from the CNS and connect to the rest of the body. In general, neurons in the PNS receive and carry signals in the body, while neurons in the CNS analyze information. The brain serves as the central processing unit, integrating sensory input and directing appropriate responses. According to research, the brain has an intricate network of approximately 86 billion neurons. Neurons are the basic functional units of the nervous system. Multiple interconnected neurons form a neural circuit and use electrical and chemical signals to quickly transmit information throughout a human being. The neuron main structures include dendrites, which serve as the main apparatus for receiving input from other neurons, cell body, which maintain the cell and keep the neuron functioning efficiently, axon, which carry messages away from the cell body and relay messages to other cells, myelin sheath, which enables electrical signals to travel down the axon at higher speeds, and axon terminals or presynaptic terminals, where chemical messages are transmitted to the dendrites of another neuron. Neurons communicate using both electrical signals and chemical messages. Information in the form of an electrical impulse is carried away from the neuron cell body along the axon of the presynaptic neuron towards the axon terminals. When the electrical signal reaches the axon terminal, the electrical signal triggers synaptic vesicles to release chemical compounds called neurotransmitters into the synaptic space. The released neurotransmitter molecules bind to specialized receptors on the postsynaptic neuron. The binding of neurotransmitters to their receptors cause that neuron to generate an electrical impulse. The nervous system uses a variety of neurotransmitter molecules. Each of these neurotransmitters has a specific distribution and function in the brain. Mental disorders often involve disturbances in the brain regions, as these brain regions are critical for functions like personality, language, memory, and perception, which are frequently disrupted in mental disorders. The frontal lobe is responsible for many higher-order cognitive functions, for example, decision-making. It helps with regulating emotions, social interactions, and personality expression. The parietal lobe has a role in sensory integration, spatial awareness, and the perception of our body's position in space. It is involved in understanding language and using symbols. The occipital lobe is responsible for visual processing and allows us to perceive shapes, colors, and motion, and connect it with stored memories to recognize objects, faces, and places. Finally, the temporal lobe contains structures vital for language processing and auditory perception and plays a role in recognizing faces and processing emotions, shaping our interpersonal interactions and communication skills. The limbic system, brain structures comprising of amygdala, hippocampus, cingulate gyrus, hypothalamus, thalamus, and ventral striatum are also linked to mental disorders. They play a role in regulating emotions, memory, and motivation. The amygdala is known as the brain's fear center. It processes emotions and is involved in the stress response. The hippocampus is essential for forming and storing new memories and works with the amygdala to connect emotions to events. The anterior cingulate cortex in the cingulate gyrus helps with focus, emotion regulation, and the appraisal of emotional stimuli. The hypothalamus controls basic functions like temperature, sleep, and appetite, and plays a role in some emotions. The thalamus is the processing center that relays sensory information and plays a role in alertness and attention. Finally, the ventral striatum acts as the brain reward center and is involved in reward learning and motivation. These are the references for this slide, and thank you for your attention.